business. So to go back to Sonny's question about, and Gary, right, about how much is enough in terms of contact. There's an old case, not that old, from 1998, where the federal court in Ohio ruled that it could exercise personal jurisdiction over a California defendant who did business in Ohio. So clearly, if you're doing business in a state and you get sued over something connected to that business, that state's courts ought to have jurisdiction over your claim, right? In this case, though, this is 1998, so it was really not before the internet, but before doing business online and through the internet became such a common occurrence. So the federal court said, the courts of Ohio can exercise personal jurisdiction over a California defendant, even though in terms of the business that California defendant did in Ohio, everything was done by mail and by phone calls. But California defendant placing phone calls to the other party in connection with this business deal they were doing, the other party being in Ohio, court said, yeah, that's enough. So my point is, when they say minimum, they mean minimum. It doesn't have to be enormous. But the courts kind of play back and forth. And lawyers, of course, are going to fashion arguments all the time, right? So it just sorts of things. So did I put up, we did the court hierarchy, right?
Yes.
So real quick, federal district courts, state district courts, state circuit courts of appeal, state Supreme Court, U.S. Circuit Courts of Appeal. What circuit is Louisiana in? We went over this last week. Fifth Circuit. Promise you that'll be on your test.
How often, I don't know if there's an exact number, but how many, if you had to guess, like over the last 5 or 10 years, how many cases have been heard by our state Supreme Court that have been appealed to the federal Supreme Court?
If I had to guess, and it would be purely a guess. You mean that, or that came out of the Louisiana Supreme Court and then the losing party asked the U.S. Supreme Court if they would hear it? I would not bet that there were more than maybe 15 to 20% maximum. And that's probably overstating it. Then in terms of how many actually does the U.S. Supreme Court agree to hear? Way fewer than that, probably 2%. Again, don't hold me to it, I'm guessing, but the jump from a state Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court is a rare occurrence, because you have to be able to tell the party who wants to go from here, who's lost here and wants to go here, you got to tell them why they should hear this case. In other words, do they even have jurisdiction? If this case came up through the state courts, the federal courts, you're going to learn in a couple minutes, there's only 2 ways to get your case into federal court. Federal courts, those guys don't like to work a whole lot. Seriously. So they have plenty of judges, and those judges do not have a ton of cases that they each have to handle. And when Congress set up all these federal district courts and federal circuit courts of appeal, Congress protected them to keep people from being able to just flood those courts with lawsuits. Congress passed 2 statutes that said, no, there's only 2 ways that you can take your case and file it in federal court. And might as well talk about that at this point. So these are the 2 ways to get into federal court. You have to show that your case involves a question of federal law. So we call that federal question jurisdiction. What I mean by involves a question of federal law is the law that you are suing under, if you're the plaintiff, has to be either a federal statute passed by Congress, or it has to involve an issue issue that arises under the United States Constitution. That's federal question jurisdiction. That's an easy call. So if I'm representing a plaintiff who's suing her former employer for sex discrimination, and I'm suing under, my client is suing under the federal employment discrimination law, which we call Title VII. In that case, we can file our lawsuit in federal court, and there is no question but that the federal court will keep the lawsuit and hear it, because our suit involves a law that is in fact a federal as opposed to a state law. Okay, any questions about federal question jurisdiction? That's the easy one. The harder one, and the only other way to get into federal court, is through what we call diversity of citizenship jurisdiction. So, what does that mean? Well, diversity of citizenship jurisdiction means that if the plaintiff in the suit is from one state and the defendant is from another state, and the suit involves at least $75,000. So if you're suing somebody over a $5,000 promissory note, there's no way you're getting into federal court.
Wait, can you repeat that?
So diversity of citizenship means that the plaintiff and the defendant have to be from different states. But there's a second requirement for diversity of citizenship jurisdiction, and that is that the lawsuit has to involve what's called an amount in controversy of $75,000 or more. So what I'm saying is the federal courts, they don't want to mess with the little stuff, right? We're only going to look at big cases. $75,000 minimum. And every now and then, every 10 or 15 years, Congress ups that number. It used to be 50,000. It was 35 for a while, then 50. Now it's 75. So the case has to involve, it's called the amount in controversy. Like, how much am I asking for if I'm the plaintiff? If I want to be in federal court under this type of jurisdiction, I got to make sure my lawsuit says that I'm owed $75,000 or more. Okay? But the other, and perhaps the most important requirement, this is the one where it gets a little sticky, is that the citizenship of the parties must be diverse. That's what diversity of citizenship means. Meaning, the plaintiff has to be a citizen of one state and the defendant has to be a citizen of a different state, hence diversity. If plaintiff and defendant are from the same state, even if the case involves $275,000, you cannot get into federal court. That is a state court case, right? So you got to have both of these requirements met to get into federal court under that jurisdiction.
It can be international too, though, right?
Yes, and that was going to be my next sentence, exactly. The plaintiff and the defendant have to either be from different states, or one of them has to be from a state and the other party has to be from another country. Okay? So it's either you're from a state in a foreign nation or you're from two different states. Now, that doesn't seem all that complicated. That's pretty easy. Let's say the defendant is a corporation. Remember, I just erased it. But corporations are citizens of two states, right? Wherever they have their articles of incorporation filed and where they have their main offices. So I can pick whichever one of those I want and sue that corporation in it. But I'm a plaintiff in Louisiana, so I want that home court advantage, right? I want to be the one that the jury identifies with and all that good stuff. So I probably have filed my lawsuit in a Louisiana state court against a Georgia defendant. I can do that, but I know what's going to happen. When that Georgia defendant gets served with the lawsuit and gets lawyered up, the lawyer's going to come in and say, oh no, we ain't getting home cooked in Louisiana state court. The best we can do here is we're going to federal court. So the lawyer comes in and files what's called a petition to remove the case from state court, from here, states, and the case involves at least $75,000. So it's kind of a game, again. Plaintiff wants home court advantage. So I'm gonna go ahead and file my suit against this Georgia defendant in state court, fully knowing that because the case involves at least suing this Georgia defendant for at least $75,000, he's gonna come in, or if it's a corporation, it's gonna come in and they're gonna remove the case, take it out of the state district court and flip it over here to the federal district court in the same state. Okay, so it's not like it goes from Louisiana State Court to Georgia Federal Court. It's gonna be Louisiana State Court, and the Georgia defendant is gonna ask that it be moved to the federal district court located in Louisiana as well. And that's basically how that works. Now, here's the only real kind of screwy glitch. What if you have multiple parties? Because not every lawsuit has one plaintiff and one defendant, right? That's kind of a rare thing. A lot of times it's one plaintiff, but it may be several defendants. But it can be multiple plaintiffs suing multiple defendants in the same lawsuit. So let's say you got P1, P2, P3 suing defendant 1, defendant 2, defendant 3, and defendant 4. So, if any one of these three plaintiffs is a citizen of the same state as any one of these four defendants, there is no diversity, and the case cannot be removed to federal court. So in other words, the correct way to say this is that it has to be complete diversity of citizenship. So, here, what will work is plaintiff 1 from Louisiana, plaintiff 2 from Louisiana, plaintiff 3 from Texas. Over here, defendant 1, a Nevada corporation, defendant 2, a California corporation, defendant 3, a New York corporation, defendant 4, a Virginia corporation. So it doesn't matter if these guys could all be from Nevada, right? And these guys could all be from Louisiana. What matters is, do you see the same state on either side of the V, the versus? Okay, if you do, if, for example, this defendant is a Louisiana defendant, that ain't going to federal court because the diversity is not complete. You got a Louisiana plaintiff, and now you got a Louisiana defendant. It doesn't matter that all these other defendants are from a different state than these plaintiffs. If the same state shows up on either side of the V, even if it's just one, that cannot go to federal court, even if it involves $75,000 or more. I mean, it looks like you ought to be able to, but there's this concept that a plaintiff can destroy diversity jurisdiction, prevent the out-of-state defendants from removing the case from Louisiana State Court to the federal court under diversity citizenship simply by finding some defendant who has something to do with the case that's also from Louisiana. Because they know you got Louisiana here, you got Louisiana there, you ain't going to federal court. You're stuck in state court. Yeah.
Does the minimum requirement rules apply there, or it has to be, like you say, for example, if one of the defendants was not from Louisiana as one of the plaintiffs, but they had some contact with Louisiana, does that count?
Yeah, I guess what you're asking is the minimum contacts requirement for having jurisdiction over out-of-state defendants, does that still apply?
Yeah.
That, it does. It absolutely does. So, for example, the Nevada defendant might come in and say, well, at a minimum, we're gonna remove this case to federal court, but then I'm gonna argue that the federal court in Louisiana, and no more than the state courts in Louisiana, none of them can hear this case, can make my guy come and defend the case in Louisiana because he has no connection whatsoever to this state. So under the long-arm statute and the International Shoe Company decision, if any of these defendants do not have minimum contacts with the state where the suit is filed, then they can also come in and argue that, defend the suit, state court or federal court? Because I got no connection whatsoever to the state of Louisiana where the suit's filed. Alternatively, Judge, if you think I do have some minimum contact with the state of Louisiana, and you rule that I can be sued in Louisiana, then I want to leave Louisiana State Court and I want to remove this to federal court under diversity because, look, we can do that too. So you can make both arguments. That's an excellent question. Keep that in mind. That's the whole trouble with the law, kind of, one concept builds on another. And most of the time, the initial concepts don't just evaporate. Those initial requirements don't go away because now we're looking at a different issue. So in other words, that's why people go to law school for 3 years. You gotta learn all this crap, right? Like, how do I get my out-of-state client out of this mess? How many options do I have? Here, you got a couple. So it might occur to you, what difference would it make to this Nevada defendant, or the California, or the New York, or the Virginia defendant? Why would they bother to remove it from Louisiana State Court to Louisiana Federal Court? They're still in Louisiana, right? That ain't taking care of that home court problem, is it? Not for that defendant. Anybody have a clue why? Go ahead.
No jury in the federal court?
No, there's juries in federal court. Juries in federal court, Sonny.
State court, you follow the statutes by the letter. In federal court, you follow, it's based on previous decisions throughout.
Not necessarily. I mean, that's true, but that's not. For example, if in diversity cases often involve issues that arise only under state law, not under federal law. If your case involves an issue of federal law, then you're in federal court right here. There's no issue there, right? But diversity cases, like let's say it's a contract action, and contracts are almost always a matter of state law. There's very little federal law on contracts. The only federal law on contracts is if someone has contracted with the federal government you're a construction company and you're the winning bidder to build the new federal courthouse, right? Then you got a federal contract and federal law will apply. But for the most part, regular run-of-the-mill business contracts, federal law has nothing to do with that. So what happens in a diversity case, if it gets removed, again, simply based on these two factors, 75,000, all plaintiffs and all defendants from different states, the federal court then has to apply the state law that applies to the contract. So that's not really the issue. Really what it is, and I wouldn't necessarily expect any of you to know this, it's not a perfect solution for an out-of-state defendant, but removing it from state court to federal court levels the playing field a little bit because in federal court, the federal Eastern District of Louisiana Federal Courthouse located at Camp and Porges, when you're ready to pick a jury for your case, the jurors come not just from Orleans Parish, like they do if you're in Civil District Court in Orleans Parish, or only from Jefferson Parish if you're in 24th Judicial District Court. They come from 13 different parishes. So the idea is it's a little bit more fair for an out-of-state defendant because you're picking a jury from a much wider geographic area. And as it turns out, you're picking a jury who's going to probably have a much broader and more diverse political philosophy, judicial philosophy. In other words, Orleans Parish juries are considered, out-of-state defendants insurance companies hate to be sued in Orleans Parish because Orleans Parish juries, they're pretty liberal with they're not afraid to award a winning plaintiff a big chunk of money. Jefferson Parish, more politically conservative. The jurors are also more conservative in terms of deciding these cases, and they tend to give less money. St. Tammany Parish, same thing, much less money. St. Tammany and Jefferson Parish both being predominantly Republican jurisdictions serve on juries are going to be people who have conservative views, not just of politics, but also conservative views with respect to the law. So, yeah, we think most lawsuits are BS, and we're not just handing out cash to people. We don't do that. They may do that in other parts of the state, but we don't do that here. So the idea is, because you're getting a broader cross-section of people, where you're gonna have people whose political philosophies, whose belief in the legal system are gonna be different, that's supposed to sort of level out the playing field just a little bit. Not to mention, I mentioned home cooking to you guys. You don't get home cooked nearly as badly in federal court as you will in state court. I think I mentioned to y'all, one of the, like, I hate it if I have to go represent a defendant in, name it, almost any parish other than Orleans, Jefferson, St. Tammany. Those are a little iffy too. But man, if I gotta go to Catahoula Parish, I'm gonna tell my client, we're gonna get a Catahoula Parish lawyer to come sit next to me. Because those judges up there, they don't wanna hear from the lawyers from the big city. I mean, they love to give you this lecture about, well, you from the big city. Well, ma'am, aren't you now? We just don't do things out here in the country like y'all do it up there in the big city. And that, you hear that all day, and you think, oh God,
So
my poor client is screwed. That's it. And they'll tell you right out. They're not gonna tell you they're gonna screw you, but they're like, yeah, well, no, that won't be necessary, little lady. You can just sit on down there, cause I know you from the big city, y'all do things way different than we do up here. But we just a bunch of good old boys, and we just kinda, we know what we do. And you're like, okay.
Start putting on a little stronger Metairie accent, huh?
Yeah. Well, as opposed to CDC, where I can go in with my Yad accent. All right, how y'all doing today? Right? My old Yad accent. I grew up in a nice village, so I could bring that Yad stuff out pretty easily. I don't really do that with jokes, but, you play it a little bit. It's a little bit like acting on the stage, so you wanna kinda get into the role. That's the fun of it, really. Who had a hand up? Somebody in the back.
Oh, I was just wondering if, whenever you have someone from another parish come sit with you, like, is it one of your friends that you know, or do y'all have to go out and hire that lawyer just
Well,
to sit?
Depends. I
Or
don't
and
know
does he
anybody in
speak
Catahoula
with you too?
Parish. Thank God I've never been to Catahoula Parish on a law thing anyway. But I mean, even that happens like the St. John the Baptist Parish, which is close by, the River Parish, the St. Charles. Man, they just, they're not crazy about big city. Of course, the rest of the state hates New Orleans anyway, for all kinds of reasons, right? We don't belong here. This state, really, the way the southern part of the United States should have been set up is, there should be one state that runs horizontally. All the states should run horizontally. Because if you go all along the Gulf Coast, what you got is port towns there, right? Port towns are always gonna be more cosmopolitan, a little more sophisticated, because people have come for centuries, right, from around the world on ships and stuff, and many of them stay. So you really get this melting pot, as opposed to, if you look at, like, we have nothing in common with Shreveport and Monroe. They're ultra-conservative religiously, they're ultra-conservative politically, and New Orleans is just considered like, the whorehouse of the state, I guess. I mean, they just think anything goes down there, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, that ain't like us, we don't know anything about that kind of stuff. And that's one reason New Orleans loses so often in the state legislature. Why the city has to have a constant presence with lobbyists when our legislatures meet. Because they hate New Orleans. They don't want to give New Orleans anything. They think we're like some kind, I don't know. And you know what? It would be fine with most of us here in New Orleans if they just let us secede from Louisiana and be our own state. But, because it doesn't help New Orleans to be in this ultra-conservative state either.
New Orleans can afford it.
Yeah, we could. This is true. Question?
Aren't jurors supposed to take like some kind of oath to be
They are,
unbiased?
and they do.
But
But they're also human beings.
Yeah, but it still will.
So it's not, I'm not trying to paint a picture that every juror comes in totally biased, like, all right, who's the local girl, who's the local guy, I'm going with him. I don't mean to give you
It's
that
like a
impression.
subconscious, like, oh, I relate to.
That's correct. It's just, it's human nature to identify with certain people.
You can
I
do,
mean, it's why, let's be frank, it's why, you know, if you have a high profile African-American defendant like O.J. Simpson, they didn't want a jury of white people, they wanted people who were gonna like relate more to the defendant, who were gonna be more understanding of maybe his background or whatever. It's a crazy thing because it really does, in effect, it acknowledges the existence of prejudice and bias. But that is the real world. Prejudice and bias exist in this country. It exists all over the world. I mean, racism is not a problem we have taken care of, as we all know in the United States of America. We are so far from resolving that issue. And then you can start tacking on, you know, sexism and religiousism and whatever that is, religionism, and, you know, people have their freaking biases, and it's the real world. So you try to calculate for that, you try to throw that into the mix when you're making all of your strategy decisions about where to file your lawsuit, and then from the lawyer's perspective, you have to do that when you're picking the jury in a case.